Day 15. We are halfway through 30 days of Photoshop with me, Kevin Aronson from the Hampshire School of Photography. Hiya and welcome to Halfway Point. We're halfway through. It's fantastic. So today we're looking at effects, or sometimes they're called layer styles. And these are the effects, the special effects that you can apply to your layers, particularly when you're working on things like text or any kind of graphics you're using in your images. And it's quite possible even to cut out elements of your photograph and apply these effects to them as well. And special effects is something you may not have come across yet, because really the only way to properly access it is through the layers panel. So here I've got a picture of this red kite, and let's just say I want to post this with a piece of text next to it on Facebook that says red kite. So I'm just going to grab the text tool and I'm just going to write here in great big letters red kite. Okay, move that where I like it, maybe stick it there, something like that. Looks about right. And now that I've got this in place, there are things I can do to it through the special effects section. And special effects is down here where it says FX. Do you see that? So select what you're going to change. In this case, we're going to change the text, and then click on and hold the FX button, and this submenu drops down. So first of all, I mean, there's a whole range of special effects you can put here, and not all of them are good, in my opinion. Some of them are really cool, some of them are a complete waste of time, and some are okay, but you're only rarely going to use them, if ever. One of the most common ones is stroke, and I'm just going to click on that and we'll see what happens. Now, stroke is the name referred to the outside line or the edge that surrounds something. If I took the stroke off, you can't see it. If I increase it in size, it gets enormous, and it could overtake the image completely in theory. But if I take it down to a sensible size like that, it becomes quite manageable. And most strokes don't look like that. They're far more simple, and in fact they're probably a plain colour, something like that, and they're probably only, I'm just going to type in 3 here, just in this section up here. I'm just going to type in 3. There's something more like that, more manageable, more ordinary, but they don't have to be. And once you've got stroke ticked and selected, you can go into the stroke area, which is here, and change what it is. So you can change the colour first of all. So let's make it a red stroke. It's a red kite, so we'll put a red stroke, and we'll make it a little bit wider. And we have a choice whether it's on the inside of the letter or whether it's on the outside of the letter. You can even go in the middle, somewhere in between, but it's up to you to choose. The effects can be different. If you go on the inside, you tend to get sharp edges in the corners like that. If you go on the outside, the sharp edges are on the inner part of the stroke, but they're curved on the outside. So you pay your money, it takes your choice. If you go centre, then you kind of get a bit of a compromise-ish, but it's more biased towards sharp in the middle and curved on the outside. Let's go back to inside, and I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Actually, I'm going to go on the outside. Let's go outside. So there we are, red kite. It doesn't have to be a single colour. It can be a gradient, and that's my default gradient, because that's the default gradient as designed by our graphic designers who came up with our logo. So they gave the if I click on the gradient itself, this is the gradient here, and each one of these points represents a different colour. There's a lighter one and then a darker one at this end, and that colour you can look at in a colour picker, and you type in the exact numbers you want to. If you want to, this is the hexadecimal version of the number. Other people tend to use the RGB, red, green, blue code, Don't worry if you don't know what this is and you don't want to get involved in it. I'm just me trying to impress. No, we were given the numbers by the graphic designer, so I punched them in here and it's created our gradient for us in our own colours. So that's how we did that. But look, there's a massive choice of gradients, different colours, and if you keep going down, there's our HSP gold. There's a whole range down here as well. So there's a bunch of greens. Oh, that's rather cool. Maybe some reds, like that as well. Okay, so that's strokes, and strokes you can have more than one if you want to. Just click on the plus sign and another one pops up. So on this one, let's make this one just plain black with no gradient. So it's color black. Okay, here it comes, and it only appears once it's bigger than the other one that's already there. So we just take it out a little bit more. There it is. There it is. And you can make it very big, or you could, if you wanted, make it red, as it's a red kite. Yes. And go really silly with that. So honestly, I found that when I first discovered this section in Photoshop many years ago, I would spend hours playing around with absolute rubbish trying to get something I liked. And it's only after you spend a long time here do you kind of get used to the feel of things and the way they might look, and then you save time. And if you look now, the text, the red kite, this is the red. Let's just take the effects off by clicking on there. There's the initial white lettering, and then beneath it is the effects list. And I can take off any particular effect that I want to. Just put the red one on, or the gradient one on. Quite like the red one. Let's go for the red one. Okay, so that was only one effect, and I'm not going to show you them all. If I double click on there, then the whole effects panel pops up, and down here is the full range. Stroke is commonly used. Drop shadow, another one that's commonly used. Let me click on drop shadow. Notice this hasn't changed, and it won't change until you select it. Although I ticked it to actually be applied to my image, I can't see the controls until I click on the panel, and it goes light grey. And now I've got control over, well, let me just show you. Drop shadow, you should now begin to see it. And if I push the opacity up, and now the letters have a kind of 3D effect, as if they've been lifted off the page a little bit. And the more you spread it, the more the effect changes. And you just have to play. There's no point in me going through this in any intricate detail. You really have to come in and play with this yourself. If you're working against a different colour background, you may need to choose a different blending mode. So multiply works fine with this, but I'm not sure screen mode. This is screen mode, you can't see the effect at all. But what about normal? Yeah, normal does. Normal works. Okay. So I think we'll demonstrate one more of these effects so that you can then load up your own images and start playing with them yourself. And I think I'd like to demonstrate satin. Now, I haven't used this very often, but where I have used it, it's been very effective. I'm going to put up the colour overlay, back to red, and you can now see the satin effect-ish. So it needs a little bit of tweaking, but it's nearly there. And it almost looks like, it does look like satin, but it also looks a little bit like lightning as well, in my opinion. And satin is an interesting one because basically it's created by letters within letters. So inside red kite, other words, red kite. And as we blend them out of focus, so they become the satin effect. And you just have to play around with these two controls to get something you actually end up liking. And it's possible to go too far, so that's probably too far. That Oh, that's quite nice. Let's just take this one back a bit. So you can see, you just have to play to get the look that suits your taste. Rather like it. Let's try a different contour, see whether that will make any difference. Whoa, look at that. Gosh, that's pretty cool. Let's try one that's less fluffy. Let's just try that. It's fairly simple. That's quite attractive. So I think that's about as far as I want to go today, but I will run very quickly through some of these extras, the other options on here. How to glow is literally putting a soft glow around the outside or whatever it is you're working on. Pattern overlay, there's a choice of dozens, hundreds of patterns that you can add. You can import loads, make up your own, add them in, colour, black and white, and so on and so forth. Gradient you've seen, colour overlay you've seen, satin, inner glow. Inner glow's an interesting one. Let's get rid of the pattern overlay. And the inner glow, actually that probably won't show off very well against a white background. So we would have to change, let's change to there, red overlay. So now we can bring in the inner glow, and you see what's starting to happen. We can increase the size of that and start doing some stuff like that. Okay. Inner shadow, this can be quite good. Now this inner shadow is literally like having a shadow inside the letter. If I move the light source around, which is, I'm on the wrong one, I've got inner glow selected. Let's make sure inner shadow is selected. There we go. And now I can move that shadow around, and I can change the distance, make it a more shallow shadow, and so on and so forth. And you can play some really strange games with it as well. So before we finish, let's go over to bevel and emboss and contour, and that can create some nice stuff for us. If I take the stroke off, and I take the outer glow off, and I take the inner shadow off, then we're left with this kind of bevel effect thing going on. Let's make it a little bit smaller, it's a bit on the large side, and that's quite a nice effect. If you want to change the colour of the bevel, then you can do that by clicking on stroke and adjusting the size of the stroke. Adjusting the size of the stroke to match that of the bevel. So make it a bit bigger, a bit too big, somewhere around about there. Okay, that's good. And then you've got controls over the light here as well. So if I see, you've got shadows coming in, and I can take the shadows down a bit, and so there's lots to play with. Okay, lots for you to learn, lots for you to practice with. It's going to take you a long time to really understand and get your head around that kind of stuff, but you know, the fun is in the learning. And don't worry if it takes you a long time, because you're enjoying the process, and that's why you have the hobby, because you enjoy the process. Now if you're watching this on the internet, and images, videos just appear all over the place when you're least expecting them, check out the 30 days of Photoshop at phototeacher.blog. Phototeacher.blog is the blog where I post my teaching tricks for photography. So have a look, and you can access all 30 days of Photoshop completely free of charge. If you want to find out about our workshops, these are physical workshops in groups usually, although I do teach one-to-one at our training centre in North Hampshire in Fleet. Then look up the website. The website is GoHSP. That's HSP as in Hampshire School of Photography.com. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow as we go on to day 16 of 30 days of Photoshop. We're now into the second half, and the end is in sight. Ish. It never ends.